All right, well, welcome on my next guest. We got recurring guests. We got Nick Ashooh, NBC Sports Washington. Nick, how's everything going for you?
Oh, it's good, man. You good?
I'm good. What do you think of this big trade? I think that Bill O'Brien is now running the Rockets front office.
I mean, listen, you make it sound a little worse than it actually is. They get a first-round pick out of it. I like the trade for the Wizards, but I also understand where the Rockets were because you had somebody that didn't want to be there anymore. And it's not like he had the connection if you're Russell Westbrook, playing in Houston. He was there for a year. It's not Oklahoma City. Here's ultimately how it breaks down. If you're the Wizards, you essentially could not get out of that John Wall contract. This is the best way that you could because you're still spending the same amount of money, but you're getting a player in Russell Westbrook that has been healthy. You know what you're getting on the court from him. John Wall, we haven't seen him in 2 years, so we have no idea.
We saw him in that video.
I know. I get the workout videos. I get that that's a thing, and everybody.
Oh no, not that video. The one that the front office didn't like. We saw him in that video.
Well, yeah. There's obviously some poor decisions when it came to those too. But look, these workout videos that everybody likes to put out there, it's great, but it's not a real NBA game. So what they did was essentially, let's try to lower the risk. Let's focus on a guy we know can at least come in here and will play a way that we hope is going to mesh with Bradley Beal, because that's really the big question now is, does that work? Bradley Beal signed off on this deal, but it still then has to work when they're actually out there on the court. So if you're the Wizards, that first round pick is heavily protected, and your hope is that it's in the 20s somewhere. So it's really not going to matter as much. You get somebody in Russell Westbrook that has star power that you know is going to go out there and bring all of the intensity. Sometimes maybe a little too much, where he plays so angry that you're kind of like, hey, pull it back just a little bit because you've lost all focus in this game. He's wildly inconsistent. I've never been a fan of Russell Westbrook's game, but given the circumstances and where the Wizards were with John Wall and then where Russell Westbrook was, it was the trade that made the most sense because there wasn't a lot of wiggle room for the Wizards to get away from John Wall if that was the decision, and clearly that's what they wanted to do.
And I saw your wild prediction. What percent chance does KD come here to free up with Westbrook?
Look, maybe a 1% chance. Maybe he just decides to wrap up his career here late. This is so funny. It's like, you know how Twitter is. Like, it's hard for people to understand sarcasm unless you do like the whole font, where I used to say there's no font for sarcasm, but now there actually is when you do the uppercase and lower. There, a lot of people got the joke. Some people are sitting there like, Durant and Westbrook didn't get along last time. There's no way that this is going to. Guys, it's a joke. It's sarcasm. Yes, if Scott Brooks gets an extension and Russell Westbrook's happier and Bradley Beal's here and they make the playoffs, what if Kevin Durant in 2 years wants to come here? That's the joke. And I knew what I was getting myself into, and I dropped a match on that fire and just decided to watch it go up in flames. But, it is what it is, man.
Were you surprised after? Because what was it? He had a little charity thing last week, and I forget who kept asking him. Scott Abraham kept asking him, "What's the deal?" And he said, "No comment" twice. I'm like, you got the message. Just stop asking him. There was no chance he was coming. How long do you think? They said they hadn't talked in weeks. Was there any chance? Do you think he was actually to play a game before he was getting traded, or do you think this has been in the works?
I think if they really wanted to, they could have smoothed it over, because you really can put it onto the situation of like, hey, Houston called us and asked about you. We talked, but we told them that we wanted to keep you. Teams talk all the time to other teams about just to even gauge what the value is of their players. Like, if I was the Warriors this year, I'd at least see what Steph Curry could get you on the market.
That's what
I'm not saying trade him.
Night.
I would at least just see, because Klay Thompson's out another year, and you're looking at a declining Draymond Green and a couple of young guys. Andrew Wiggins kind of is who he is. He's going to
be an all-star this year. Get ready. He's going to be an all-star this year.
Look, I actually like his game, but he reminds me so much of Harrison Barnes, and it's just like, he's got all these physical tools, but he never puts it all together because he doesn't seem to want it enough. But like, teams do this all the time, so I wouldn't be surprised if, other than maybe LeBron James, almost every star has been talked about by another team in terms of what their trade value is. So you could have phrased it like that with him and smoothed it over. But if you go back and look at and listen to what Tommy Shepard was saying in these before training camp press conferences, where it's Bradley Beal's our guy, this is his team, he's not going anywhere. And there was something along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing, John needs to understand this is Brad's team. The writing was on the wall that the organization has shifted, and rightfully so. I mean, Beal's been healthy. He's been out there playing 82 games. When, by the way, he had an injury bug stigma early in his career, too, and he's turned that around. So this all made sense for them to at least consider it, and for it to work out the way that it did. Look, on paper, this was a good move for them, but it may look bad later if they're not getting along or they have no chemistry, and it starts to become an issue.
So Westbrook went from OKC to Houston to DC. If it doesn't work here, who's the next team we're going to ship him off to?
I mean, I guess a team that's got a lot of cap space that just wants star power. Like,
does LeVar still have that team in Lithuania? I wonder what kind of contract they have.
Maybe. I think he's got started like 5 leagues. I've lost track of what he's done.
He's paying the Pistons to pick up the middle kid. So to pick him up so he can make the training camp. So all 3 kids of mine are in the league. That's what I know. They have all those banners of Wall at Capital One. I wonder if they're going to replace him with maybe Pastachniks or something. I don't know.
Stop. No, don't make those jokes. We're not saying his name anymore, please.
People kept talking about how they got this lengthy European. I'm like, they already had one. Ansnage. I don't know.
You loved him too much.
He was fantastic. He was great. Honestly, the best game of the entire year is the one that beat Miami with Beal and play. It was best game of the year. So what do you see their outlook is? What is their outlook for this season? Because before they're like, maybe they're a 7-8 seed. Does this make the top 6?
Maybe 6. The difference is how are they going to be defensively? Because it's still, Chris Miller would always say it's the first to 120, and that rule almost always applied to every Wizards game. But it's really what it comes down to. Robin Lopez helps them out defensively. The question is, how much time does he get? Thomas Bryant's got to be better defensively. There's just so many factors there where we know this team can score. They could score without Bradley Beal last year. I mean, they were running up the score on everybody. You talk about the Miami game. Think about Boston and Denver. Those games they won without Bradley Beal. It was all just bench guys out there. So they can clearly score now with everybody.
Smith killed the Celtics in that first game. I was there. I was like, what is going on here? Smith was on Sports Center that night.
It was surprising watching some of those games, but I will say that the big thing for them is how much better are they defensively. You better make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference with this roster. I mean, you better. But they're not going to be a top 4 team, I don't think, unless something happens at the top. There's injuries with some of these other teams. I mean, who knows how this could shake out. And by the way, there's going to be some bumps in the road early on when it comes to Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook kind of trying to figure each other out. Because that's the one advantage you had, where if you had kept John Wall, you at least know they knew how to play with each other. Even though it was going to be a little different, it was better because they have some familiarity, as opposed to Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal have never played together in the backcourt.
What do you think of the draft class?
What we talk about the Wizards?
Yeah.
For the over. I mean, it's fine. Look, I love Deni Avidja. I thought he was a steal. And people love to sit here and think, because the Wizards drafted a European player that, okay, he's going to be Jan Vesely. Well, he's nothing like Jan Vesely.
My favorite Wizard of all time, Jan Vesely. Best. I think they give up on him too soon.
See, you're trolling. This is trolling right now.
He was fun this is side characters. Those are the most fun Wizards games to go when McGee didn't know whose team he's playing for. Wall's going up the court. Nick Young's doing something. What's his name? I forget the guy's name they had from Florida State. Singleton, they're like, we had him in the second round. Singleton and Al Thornton. I'm like, this team's got what it takes. And then Vesely comes in. I'm like, they got it. And all of a sudden, I'm like, they got
what it takes to be Shaq and a fool. That was all there was. I don't want any more jokes.
Point guard. I love it. I loved it. I missed it. Blatch needs to come back. Mentor. Needs to mentor Rui.
We would be screwed if you were the general manager of that team. They would be a complete laughingstock.
I mean, you could trade a first-round pick for what's his name, Mike Miller and Randy Foy.
Well, that's true. You could do that.
And then so flipping over to football, people are very excited about this team, and I could throw for more passing yards in a game than Alex Smith.
Yeah, but that's how it was before.
I know, but do you think people are unrealistic saying, I think that he's the future?
He's the short-term future. If anybody thinks he's playing the next 5 years with his team, you're crazy. I think Charlie Casserly called it fool's gold, and he's absolutely right. Yeah. This is Alex Smith has been a stopgap quarterback for a majority of his career. And it's a shame because he was a number 1 overall pick, but considering where his career was going in San Francisco before he started to figure it out, it's actually pretty good. But I will say this is a blessing in disguise for them because it gives them an opportunity now to have a quarterback in play under center that you're at least confident in. That's giving you an opportunity to win football games. It's not pretty, but let's also remember, he has had some 300-yard games this year. The thing I've noticed about Alex Smith, and watch him when he plays now, he's different than what he was pre-injury. There's a little more of I got nothing to lose. This is a bonus being back out here playing. He's taking risks throwing the football that he didn't before, where he was much more conservative. He wouldn't be as aggressive. He was never a gunslinger, and he's still not. But he will make throws in a tighter windows that we didn't see before. And I think a lot of that is just the mental side of this, where he's like, I remember where my leg was. I almost lost my leg. To be out here, I'm just going to have fun and just go with it. He's playing with house money right now. but they are going to have to draft a quarterback. They're going to need to get somebody in this draft. Now, they're clearly not going to have the number 1 or number 2 overall pick because the Jets and Jags are allergic to winning football games. They need quarterbacks. They're clearly going to be going 1 and 2 and taking the quarterbacks that everybody expects to go 1 and 2 in whatever order you actually want to put them in. But where Washington is now, they're actually gaining enough momentum where, I mean, they could win this division in 6 wins, which is just ridiculous, but it is what it is. But also to watch them trend in the right direction.
The Cardinals
to watch them trend in the right direction to the end of this year is still a good place to put them for 2021.
Yeah. I mean, so let's see. They beat Ben DiNucci. Joe Burrow's out. They beat Finley. They beat, I remember it was last year they beat the magician Blau because Stafford wasn't playing. This year they beat Stafford. They beat them. The Lions beat them and then lost to the XFL kid. I'm like, oh, that's a great win. So they're playing Pittsburgh next Tuesday. Pittsburgh just had a late game. I think people are thinking Washington can win this game, but for the long term, if you're worried about getting you're not getting Fields, you're not getting Trevor Lawrence. Right. I like Zach Wilson from BYU. I like Trey Lance. I like Trask too. I don't think he's going that high. If they're beating the Steelers and all of a sudden I don't think they're going to beat Seattle, but they could beat every team. Is it worth falling into make the top 16, top 18, top 20, getting blown out in the first round and then missing out on a top quarterback?
Yeah, but you got to remember, organizations may tank, but players will never tank. So everybody that's out there on the field is trying to win. Bare minimum for them, it's so they can have film for the next team they play for, or to make sure that they're a part of this team next year. The only way that would have made sense was earlier on when this team was just losing every game, and they just looked horrendous. The momentum they have now, I've changed my opinion on that in the sense where I was like, you need to be focused on next year and give all the young guys all the opportunities you can. But they actually are. And you're now seeing some young names, some younger players step up and play bigger roles. I mean, Antonio Gibson is clearly the big one there, right? And he's turning himself into, I mean, I wouldn't call him a feature back, but he gets regular carries. He does so much for this offense. These are the types of things you want to see at this point in the season, to know what your future is and know what your core is with some of these young guys. In the end, it's better that they build momentum given where they already sit in the standings into next year than trying to just really pull everybody out and tank the rest of the season if you're the team.
Are you surprised they're not giving Haskins? I feel like you want to build up Haskins to trade him. Are you surprised that's not happened?
Yeah, but you also don't want more film on him if he's going to look terrible. It may have made sense before. If they're out of the playoff race, I know that Ron Rivera has said, all right, well, maybe I'd play him again if we're out of the playoff race. But clearly now, with everybody else being horrendous in the division, I mean, the Giants are going to have Colt McCoy. The Eagles are a mess. The Cowboys are imploding. So momentum is swinging, and all signs point to the odds-on favorite winning this division and being Washington, which is laughable. But it's realistic to say that. Then you go with the best quarterback that you have out there. Yeah. The good thing is about the NFL is that you always have teams. I call this the Jay Cutler effect. There's always a coach that thinks they can make a quarterback better, get the most out of him.
I actually spoke to that coach last week.
Jay Cutler's entire career has been based on that. All the physical gifts in the world. Insanely smart guy. Just didn't give a damn ever. And that was what always held him back. But there was always a coach that thought that they could get through to him. Dwayne Haskins is so young right now. There is going to be a coach that says, I can get those physical tools to turn into something great. And right now, if you allow too much film and you watch him go out there and continue to make mistakes, that's when the problem starts. But it only makes sense now because they've won a couple of games. Let's say they were, 2-9 right now, then I'd be singing a different song. But given the circumstances that they're in, they're taking the best road to that route.
Are you surprised the Eagles are playing as awful as they are?
Yeah, I am. I know they've had really bad injuries the last couple of years. It's really honestly what Washington dealt with Jay Gruden and that awful training staff they had. Carson Wentz is so frustrating. The way he played early in his career, you thought, this guy's going to be great. He has regressed so much. I saw a number, I think a stat the other day, and it was something along the lines of his regression in, I think, quarterback rating has gone down 30 points from last year to this year. And no quarterback has had a drop that drastic, except for quarterbacks in their late 30s, early 40s. We're talking Brett Favre when he was 41. I think Peyton Manning in his last year. So his drop off now, how young he is, seeing where he's basically sitting it's actually really scary.
Because I know he had that thing with the fractured vertebrae, and they're like, oh, he doesn't need surgery. I'm like, really? You fractured your spine, but you're like, oh, he'd be good in 2 months. Yeah, that's a good way to go about it. Oh, my engine broke down. Don't give it 2 months; it'll be good to go. And then I think the Giants, shockingly, they're not laughable. Like the defense, I think they're underrated. I don't know what the hell Colt McCoy. I don't know if he got his milk guy out there. You remember that story with the milk? He only gets the milk straight from the cow. He's not a. You don't remember that story?
No, that is a random. Only you would find a story like that too.
Yeah, we wrote about it. It was like Colt McCoy has a special milk guy. He only gets his cow straight from the teat of the cow, and the FDA doesn't recommend it, but he's been doing it for years. I'm like, I don't know if we got to watch out for this. I don't know if he's got one of them in Jersey.
I wonder if it's better.
I doubt it. Everything be selling it. I actually got almost side conversation. Harris Teeter tried to charge me $3 for a bottle charge for milk the other day, and they said, "Oh, you can bring it back, and we'll give you $3." I'm like, I'm gonna forget. I'm not giving you this.
That's why they do it. Come on, now you know how this works.
Yeah, I'm like, that's what forget. That's how Blockbuster stayed in business for years because people forgot and they charged them $300 for Hitch.
That didn't work out.
Yeah, not at all. So around the league, what do you think's been the biggest storyline this year?
Oh gosh, the biggest storyline this year. Well, I mean, if we're honest with ourselves, it's everything involving the pandemic. I mean, look, I wanted to try and avoid that as the big thing, but I don't think there's any way that you can. I mean, this is what we've had to deal with, and what the NFL has had to do, moving these games around and all that is. It's unavoidable, and I think they've actually done a pretty good job given the circumstances. I'll say this. I wrote about this, and I'll continue to bang this drum. I want Monday Night Football doubleheaders. I want that to always be a thing. I love it because we watch football all day Sunday, and then you carry that momentum into Monday. The first game's at 5, second game's at move it back 30 minutes, 8:30, whatever. Like 8:15, 8:30, whatever the kickoff is. 8:15 now, 8:05, 8. That's what we need, and fans would love it. Then we don't have short weeks anymore. Get rid of Thursday Night Football. We don't need it. It's stupid. That can be for Thanksgiving at the end of the season. Like, make it like Saturday games. You have those Saturday games late in the year when the games really matter. You can throw a couple Thursday night games in there too, but then we won't complain about these shorter weeks anymore. People will be ready to go on Monday to see that. It makes perfect sense.
Or maybe they could do my idea that they're never going to do called Football Day. Basically it's just 24 hours of continuous football, and you have games around the globe.
Yeah, I heard you put that out there. That's
I
mean, listen. I guess didn't they hired somebody, I think, to help expand the game in Europe again. So I mean, maybe they'll bring back NFL Europe and you'll get your
Japan Bowl, bam, stadium right there. They used to have NFL Europe, bam, right there. Wherever, like, who else is from Europe?
I feel like the travel cost would be a lot though.
Yeah, and then you put the teams that really aren't contending, to put it nicely, you put them on at 3:00 in the morning and you have prime time all day. Scott Hansen would need a backup. I don't think he can go that. He can go 7 hours. 24 is out of the question.
I think you need a bucket under that desk of his eventually.
Yeah, I don't know how he stands the whole time, which is I think is crazy.
Hey, standing's better for you. You don't want to sit all day anyway.
7 hours, can't move, and all you got to do is watch you're like, hey, the Jags on? No, it's 4th and 12. And then so with this upcoming quarterback class, do you think teams are hesitant to take Justin Fields because the last Ohio State quarterback that was drafted that high hasn't really panned out?
No, because teams will always think that they can, again, make somebody better or this guy's different. Teams will talk themselves into somebody because they want them to be their dream, right? Like, you will talk yourself. How do you think we've had all these busts at quarterback? Like Jamarcus Russell, he had one good bowl game and all of a sudden he catapults to the number 1 overall pick. I know it was the Raiders and they were a mess back then, but teams will talk themselves into drafting somebody. It's almost like it's like somebody that's desperate to be in a serious relationship. They'll settle for the person that they're dating that may not be the best person for them because they just talk themselves into it because they desperately love it. They love the idea of that person, even if it's not really the right person. They love the idea of a franchise quarterback, even if it's not really a franchise quarterback.
She's got a very high upside. I'm in for the long haul. It's incredible. Are you surprised by this Buccaneers collapse since Antonio Brown took the field?
You're really going to blame it on Antonio Brown? Stop it.
I mean, he didn't like destroy like some gated community or something?
Yeah, but that was forever ago. He's been so quiet. Look, he has barely even done anything out there for them. The problem is simple. The problem is that you got Bruce Arians calling out Tom Brady, the media, and Tom Brady's not happy about it. But isn't it funny? Because early on in the season, there was little bumps, right? There was a little bit of this. Then all of a sudden, people are like, Tom Brady could be MVP again this year. And now we're back to that conversation again. This is the first year for both of these coach and quarterback working with each other. Tom Brady spent 2 decades in the same organization doing the same thing. Of course, this is going to be uneven. And you know what? They may be just a fringe playoff team when all is said and done. And maybe he comes back next year and is similar, or maybe it's worse and maybe he retires. I mean, physically, he's not who he used to be, but he's still as smart of a quarterback as anybody that's out there. At some point, this ends. At some point, Tom Brady falls off. It's just how this works.
I don't know. This Washington is going to sign him. They've done it every time you look at great players' career. Like, wait a minute, they played for Washington for a year at the end. Yeah, Brady. Get ready. You're Brady. Get a case. You're gonna have a Brady Washington football jersey. Hopefully, they have a team. What do you think of that when they said, "Oh, we might just keep this football team"?
No. Look, I'm glad that they're taking their time. Yeah. Take your time with the name. Even if you do it next year too, take your time. Talk to everybody. No matter what name you come up with, it's not like you're going to make everybody happy. It's virtually impossible to make everybody happy with the name change and logo and everything that's going to be. But you cannot just be Washington football team. It's so clunky and so awkward because you can't sit there and go, it's the Giants versus football team, but Giants versus Washington sounds weird. And then it's, well, New York versus Washington. Fine, that makes sense. But you need to have a nickname. Part of your identity in American sports is having that nicknickname. Now, I understand we can talk about
except soccer.
Yeah, Premier League. Well, the MLS has kind of changed that, but that's because the best leagues are over there in Europe, and they do it that way. So that's fine. But that doesn't work in the NFL or the NBA or the NHL or Major League Baseball. You can't do that. Like, imagine Washington Baseball Club. It just sounds stupid. Just nicknames are part of the way American sports are. It's how we identify with it. It's way too clunky to keep this name for a long time.
I've been calling it whiffed, and it doesn't stick, because it's incredible.
Whiffed.
And whiffed. Whiffed. Goodness. Yeah. And then so one last question for you. The Ravens are imploding as we see it.
Yeah.
It's cases. Lamar isn't doing too well. There's a looming contract that I've been thinking about since he got MVP, and they might miss the playoffs. What is your thoughts on their season?
It's funny because I remember watching this last year, and at the growth of Lamar Jackson from year 1 to year 2 was astronomical, and he'd worked hard. He was also a guy that didn't really show you. You talk about those workout videos. Yeah. He wasn't really that dude. He just was working, getting better, and it showed on the field. Yeah. But you always have this. We've seen this so many times with young quarterbacks that are just so dynamic, so physically gifted that early on there's just not enough film on them, and teams just can't adjust to who they are. How do you then grow in that second year as a starter? Because his rookie year, he barely played. So I look at last year as essentially his first year really as a full-time starter. Then from that year to this year, we've seen regression. We've seen teams crowd the box. We've seen teams force him to throw the football more. And, we saw this with RG3. I know there were injuries on that too. But I saw this conversation a lot with people yesterday. Well, if it wasn't for the injuries with RG3, no. He was a physically gifted quarterback.
He still can't slide.
But
he still can't slide.
He still can't slide. He wasn't accurate enough throwing the football. You still, as a quarterback in today's NFL, have to be able to be an accurate thrower. It's great if you can scramble around. It's great if you can elude a defense, but you have to be able to do more than that. And we're going to see the same thing with Kyler Murray as time goes on. We've already seen some struggles with him. That's going to continue. These dynamic quarterbacks over and over. Hell, man, even Tim Tebow. People are looking at Tim Tebow, who couldn't throw the football at all, but he somehow won football games because he was athletic. Eventually, it caught up to him. You have to continue to evolve. I always remember Donovan McNabb early in his career was mostly a scrambling quarterback. He ran for 125 yards, I think, his first year as a starter with the Eagles against Washington. But he became much more of a pocket passing quarterback. And say what you want about his time in Washington. We go Eagles time only. He was incredibly successful in Philadelphia, and he evolved as a quarterback. Every single quarterback has to learn how to evolve moving forward.
You think Taysom Hill can make that jump?
People love Taysom Hill, man. It's interesting to see, because they're really pushing that, and I get it. But if they think he's the future, I can't buy in. I can't buy into the Taysom Hill thing. He's a fun gadget player, and it's fun in these short spurts of him starting right now. But honestly, if I'm Sean Payton, I would just be once Drew Brees is gone, I'd want to take a year off coaching and then go somewhere else after that. And you could have your choice of whatever job you want.
What he could do last time took a year off. He was coaching his kids' middle school football
team. He did take a year off.
They have Jameis. They have Jameis, the most electric quarterback in the NFL. He has LASIK, 20/20 vision. They've got weapons. You got Kamara, Latavius Murray, freaking Emmanuel Sanders. What's his name? Jared Cook. I don't know if you ever remember the Jared Cook, the chicken wing story?
No. You have a lot of random stories about players. Do you just deep dive into players all day? Do you do anything else?
Yeah, basketball. No. He went to Buffalo Wild. You could look it up. Every time I hear his name, I'm like, this guy's got trauma. He went to Buffalo Wild Wings one time. He got a chicken head when he ordered his chicken, and it went all over the internet. Yeah, and I'm like,
you know what? Actually, I think I vaguely remember. Although I'll say this, I've seen so many stories of that happening that it wouldn't surprise me, because just people get like the chicken feet and stuff. Oof.
No, gizzards. I'm like, who's buying gizzards at Giant? But that's all the questions I really have for you. Do appreciate you taking time. How can people follow you on social media? Keep up with you
at Nick Ashooh. Easy enough.
Cool, man. Well, appreciate you taking time. It's been a blast. Hoping the Wizards season goes better than last year. We'll see if Rui can take it to the next level.
Yep.
I'm gonna figure out if I can learn how to spell Deni Avidja. I don't know.
Yeah, you gotta learn how to say it first.
Deni. It's like Deni.
Deni, like Denny's.
He should get sponsorship.
Yeah,
he should get sponsorship.
Deni Avidja. The emphasis is on the first syllable.
Yeah. All right. Now, Deni should be calling this guy. Like, we get international appeal.
Somebody needs to tell his agent, man.
Yeah.